Hey guys, Jacob here. This is going to be a pretty long video. I'm going to try to make this quick as possible and not draw it out as much. I'm going to skip through a few things, but these are the PTS Title Update 6 patch notes, and I'm going to go through some of them. I'm going to skip some of them and actually, pause it, where you guys can pause the video if you want to read some of them, but I'm mostly going to cover the ones that you guys want to see, or the ones that I want to see that are most important. First of all, the blueprints. Added a missing blueprint for the Aces of 8 knee pads. Removed 3 blueprints from the collection as they were not obtained in the game. Gear normalization, player stats will no longer be normalized, and agents will receive their full recalibration bonus at the end of the game. That's PvP. Players below gear score 500 will still receive stat boost to allow easier entry in the dark zone. Talents continue to have PvE and PvP versions. The UI change. Okay, so this is kind of like normal UI stuff there. Supply drops added more variety of types and locations of supply drops. Supply drops can now drop inactive landmarks, or these encounters can have multiple bosses or faction fights. Supply drops will occasionally drop an occupied dark zone. Black Tusk will be sure to guard the precious drop. Thieves' Den, which this is something that really interests me, that one of my friends actually told me to look at. The Thieves' Den vendor now has a set up and proper store and accepts DZ resources. Will stock and will rotate regularly, and we'll have more information on the stock rotation later point. So it appears that there is a Thieves' Den vendor now. Added an indicator on the world map which displays the Pacific Dark Zone in which Thieves' Den vendor is located. At the end game, the Thieves' Den vendor will move between 2 non-occupied DZs. Normal vendors outside of each Dark Zone main gate now accept DZ resources with reworked stocks. Matchmaking, higher populations in all zones. General changes. Conflicts. Add new sound effects for the countdown and conflict into match rewards. Players will now always earn a reward for playing a match. Additional rewards will be given for ranking up and winning. So I guess if you guys just play conflict, you guys will receive something. So if you lose, you'll still get something. New loading screen, boost signs and feedback, start sequence. Control point officers will now receive all down or revive all down players instead of only reviving the player that was down last in the co-op sessions. UI added a new bonus armor visualizing on enemies. Players can now choose layout from the map voting screen. Looting targets, a new feature induced top switch, which will be able to see. Okay, yeah, this is the named areas I was talking about in the previous video, where you guys will actually be able to see certain areas that dropped named specific items. So if you're looking for like a Gila like chest piece, there might be a mission or something that has an area where it's more detailed to actually get it. Recalibration. Interface, players are now able to recalibrate stat types from an overage, for example. Yeah, this is from like the offensive, the red to blue. So if you guys have like say a vest and you don't want to have all 3 blues on there, you can actually convert it to like a yellow or a red, or the other way around. Brand sets now have the item available at every slot. Mask, backpack, vest, glove, holsters, and knee pads. The only exception is 511 brand, as is real life version does not cover all slots, and we're happy to stick with that. So people who are wanting the Fenris gloves, the holster, or like for different stuff like that, or like a D&H pair of gloves and the knee pads and stuff like that on certain pieces, appears that everything will now have a slot, so you're not looking for a piece that does not exist. So if you guys are looking for, I know some people were looking for wyvern gloves back in the day when the game came out, and those were actually not a thing, but now it appears that those pieces will, like Fenris, gloves, D&H gloves, wyvern gloves, those will all be a thing that you can actually combine builds with and actually make a little bit more, varied builds, it looks like. Enemies, which is crafting. Enemies will no longer drop crafting materials at the player they're currently capped out on. Okay, so if you kill something, you have max electronics, and will not drop it. Destructing gear and weapons have a chance to provide polycarbonates. The chance you gain an extra material from deconstructing stays the same. Lowered crafting costs when crafting fewer gray and brand materials now required. At the gear score 500, base materials required now 60, down from 85. 500 brand materials required now 5, down from 8. Enemies now drop higher amounts of crafting materials. Green 12 from 6, blue 9 from 4. Named enemies drop larger quantities than before. Crafting materials now drop 1 green, 1 blue material instead of just 1 on either. Blueprints that haven't been acquired yet now will be visible on the crafting bench interface with hints how to acquire them. So it actually tells you like a little hint where to find the blueprints you're missing. Add a notification to the crafting interface that increases clarity, which an upgraded crafting bench is available. The crafting vineyard now sells a perk that allows the players to share materials between all their characters. This is like already been here, if I remember correctly. This is something that was added last update. I think they just added that in there. Increased perk upgrades for materials inventory size. Base material cap with all perks unlocks now 2,000, up from 600. Green and blue material caps, all perk unlocked 1,500, up from 400. Increased material caps for rare materials. Purple cap is now 300 from 100. Orange caps now 80 from 50. Hardwire base caps is now 50 to 30. Hardwire component cap now from 10 to up to 5. Here you go. People who wanted more stash space, it is now increased by 150. So there you guys, you now got your increased stash space. Brand sets, Alp Summon Ornaments, 2-piece set bonus is now 10% skill power, up from 5%. China Light, 3-piece bonus now 20% skill haste, down from 30%. Petrov, 3-piece set bonus now 20% skill haste, down from 30. Here's some of the NPCs. I can just scroll through this real quick if you really want to read this. Erase effective Black Tusk mini tank. Choice died. Okay, so these is like the Black Tusk stuff. The NPCs. Here's some of these skills. The Seeker Mine, increased damage of explosive Seeker Mine by 20%. Now applies bleed status effect. Increased damage of Cluster Seeker Mine by 30. Increased cooldown of Cluster Seeker Mines from 40 to 60 seconds. Lowered quantity of Cluster Seeker Mines from 4 to 3. Increased the cooldown of the Blinder Firefly from 60 to 90 seconds. Firefly, all Firefly variants can now be equipped deployed and will rapidly seek out the nearest target. Increased the cooldown for the Blinder Firefly from 60 to 90. Okay, here's the turret. Assault turret and sniper turret damage now affected by damage to elite attributes. Increased drain on incinerator turret, active duration when firing. The drone striker drone is now affected by damage to elite attributes. That's cool. And now the one which I know you guys are gonna hate to see is the Eagle Bear. Lowered Eagle Bear damage by 15%. So it appears that the Eagle Bear has been nerfed just a little bit. New talents. Spark, damage enemies with skill or grenade grants 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. Spark can be found on backpack items. These are new talents. Vigilance, gain 25% weapon damage. Receiving damage disables this buff for 5 seconds. Vigilance can be found on chest items. So if I'm reading this correctly, you gain 25% weapon damage, but receiving damage disables this buff for 5 seconds. So I guess if you go into missions and stuff, and you actually have a good distance on NPCs, or if you are fighting players and they don't hit you and you hit them, you can get 25% weapon damage. That's pretty cool. Concussion. Headshot grants 20% headshot damage for 2 seconds. 5 seconds with marksman rifles. Concussion can be found on masks. So that's actually pretty cool for masks. On the ropes, got a nerf. Does not surprise me at all. I haven't read the rest of these, but I guarantee it that Compensated and Spotter have been nerfed as well. I guarantee they have, most likely. Weapon damage increased by 15%, down from 25%, while skills are on cooldown. Critical got a buff from 5%, now 15%. Critical hit damage. Mad Bomber got a buff, removed attribute requirements. Riot Foam Grenade Race is now currently modified. Unstoppable Force, that got nerfed. Killing an enemy grants 1%, down from 2%. Weapon damage for every 20,000, down from 25,000 max armor. Creeping Death got a buff. Status effects spread for the nearest enemy within 25 meters, up from 10 meters, can occur once every 5 seconds, down from 15. Trauma, new functionality. PvE, once every 30 seconds, the enemy is hit with a headshot, is blinded for 5 seconds. PvP, once every 40 seconds, an enemy hit with a headshot is blinded for 2 seconds. Center got a buff. Headshot kills grants status effect immunity for 30 seconds, up from 10. Dialed in, new functionality. While aiming in, gain 15% weapon stability. Spotter got a nerf, like I said. I'm not surprised. 15% down from 20% weapon damage to pulsed enemies. Wicked, new functionality. Whenever you apply a status effect, gain 15% weapon damage for 20 seconds. Compensated, there it is. I was waiting for that. Weapon damage increased by 10%, down from 15. When your critical hit chance is below 20%, now correctly removes the buff if critical hit chance is decreased when the buff is active. Like I said, I got nothing wrong with Spotter and Compensated. I like these talents, but I'm really not surprised that they got nerfed due to the fact that so many people have been using them. And I bet you, from what people say, what should be nerfed or what's OP. I guarantee you those like on the ropes, compensate, and all those were probably really high up there. Obliterate got a buff, which really makes me happy because I really like this talent. Depleting an enemy's armor against 30% up from 25% critical hit damage for 15 seconds. So that's actually pretty awesome. Opportunistic enemies you take 10% more damage from, all sorts of 3 seconds. Kneecap, new functionality. Shooting an enemy in the legs applies bleed to them for 10 seconds. This can occur once every 30 seconds. Bloodlust, new functionality. Swapping weapons grant 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. The buff is lost for 5 seconds when you swap a weapon while the buff is active. Gunslinger, the buff. Swapping your sidearm within 10 seconds up from 3 seconds of a kill refreshes the sidearm magazine and grants 30% up from 20% weapon damage for an entire magazine. To order, added a functionality. Grenades can be cooked by holding the fire button, making them explode earlier. Gain a 15% bonus armor while aiming the grenade. So that's actually really cool. That's kind of something I haven't really messed with, but now holding the fire button, making them explode earlier. Surgical, 10% up from 5% crit chance. Finally, this actually makes me really happy because I've been ignoring surgical because it's pretty low, but now 10%, that's actually a number I can actually use instead of 5. 5 isn't really a whole lot, but 10, that actually you can stack that on top of crit builds and have up to like 60 on AR builds if you really want to stack that crit chance up there. Entrench, which got a buff. Headshot from cover repairs 15% up from 10% of your armor. And now the weapon talents. Naked, new functionality. Whenever your armor is depleted, gain 50% weapon damage for 20 seconds. That's really nice. Breadbasket buff. Landing body shots at a stack of bonus 50% up from 5%. Headshot damage is to the next headshot for 10 seconds. Max stack is 3, down from 10. Boomerang got a buff. Critical hits have a 50% up from 20% chance to return to the bullet of the magazine. If a bullet is returned of the magazine, and the next shot has a 50% up from 20% increased damage. Close and personal got a buff. Killing a target within 7 meters grants 50% weapon damage for 10 seconds up from 5 seconds. Nearsighted adjustment, receive at 80% from 35% stability at the cost of negative 30% up from 20%. Critical strike range and 30%, negative 30% optimal range. So if you guys are making a dialed in nearsighted stability build, that's 80% stability you're going to receive just from that talent in general. So that's really cool. Finisher, adding functionality, swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds up from 3 seconds of killing enemy grants 30% critical hit chance and 30% critical hit damage for 15 added. Frenzy got a buff. For every 10 bullets in the magazine capacity, gain 3% up from 2% rate of fire and 3% up from 2% weapon damage for 5 seconds reloading from empty. Killer, killing an enemy from critical hit grants 50% up from 30% critical hit damage for 15 seconds up from 5. Lucky shot, magazine capacity is increased by 20%. Missed shots from cover have a 100% up from 25% chance to return to the magazine. Outsider, new functionality. After killing an enemy, gain 100% optimal range, 100% critical range, and 100% accuracy for 10 seconds. Removed attribute requirements, so you actually don't need anything for that. Unwavering, modified functionality. Swapping his weapon grants 200% weapon handling for 5 seconds. Kill refreshes the buff. Swapping away disables his buff for all weapons for 5 seconds. Sadist, new functionality, deals 3% weapon damage to bleeding enemies after 3 kills, applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. It appears all these are the same from my look at it, so they're just an added functionality, so it's pretty much the same with all these 30%, 30% per 30%, so they're pretty much all the same. Overwhelm, which is on the stoner, got a buff. Suppressing an enemy grants 10% up from 5% weapon damage for 10 seconds. Max stack is 5. Ranger got an adjustment. Removed attribute requirements. This makes me really happy. I don't know if you guys are a big fan of Ranger, but I've been wanting to use this talent on mostly builds that have a lot of electronics, just for a little more distance, mostly in PvE, and it's really a bit of a pain because there's not many talents that you can actually use that give you long range damage, kind of like, I guess, prepared from the first game. So that's actually why I'm really happy to do this, or actually that they changed this. Now you don't need a attribute requirement. Reformation, we got a buff. Headshot kills increase skill repair and healing by 150% up from 50% for 25 seconds. Rifleman got a buff. Stacks are no longer removed on missing shots and body shots. Premeditated got a nerf, which does not surprise me because that was a shotgun talent that everybody was using. Weapon damage is increased for every shell loaded to a maximum of 40% up from 35%. If all shells are reloaded, this weapon damage increased by an additional 10% down from 50%. Wow, that's actually additional 10% down from 50. so they did nerf this a decent amount. Pummel got a buff, 2 down from 3. Consecutive body shots kills refresh the magazine and grants 50% weapon damage for 10 seconds, up from 7. Vindictive added functionality, killing an enemy with the status effects applied grants group members within 15 meters 20% critical hit chance and 20% critical hit damage. Added for 20 seconds, up from 10 seconds. Measured modified functionality, the top half of the magazine has 20% rate of fire and negative 50% weapon damage, and the bottom half of the magazine has 20% or negative 20% rate of fire plus 30% total weapon damage. So that's really cool. Steady handed got a buff. Letting a shot as a stack of bonus 3%, up from 2%. Weapon handling max stack is 10, down from 15. And max stack each shot landed is 5%. Chance to consume the weapon handling bonus refill the magazine. Fast hands got a buff. Critical hit as a stack of 15, up from 3. Reload speed bonus. Max stack is 10, down from 20. Here's some of the UI changes. It looks like, if you guys are really interested, inventory, mark for donation, mark for recalibration. Add gear menus are all by brand, items, several other options. Character UI, damage RPM skills now visible compared to inventory screen. And loadouts. Added 12 loadouts slots. So now you guys can have more loadouts on your character. Here's the general bug fixes if you guys want to see these. I'll also go through these real quick. So you guys can see some of these. Weapons and gear, the main missions, side mission, the classified mission, Operation Dark Hours. One of these I want to see if they did fix, which was, yeah, here it is. Fix an issue that caused the 360 chain gun attack to not have a sound effect. That one was a little bit annoying because you didn't know if she was going to go down or not and spin. Sometimes it was just dead quiet, and it was really hard to tell. I'm glad they fixed that. Kinley College apparently did some stuff to it as well, but that's actually not available at the moment. Hopefully that comes back for you guys who did not get the diamond back. Here's the world. Dark Zone PvP. These are mostly like some errors and stuff like that they fixed. When turrets can drop the environment when being quick deployed in some dark zones, causing NPCs to become stuck in certain areas. Yeah, that was one I did encounter. Apparel. That's really about it, guys. That's pretty much all the patch notes for the PTS. The PTS is currently on PC, so it's not on Xbox, so I will not be playing it. But people who are playing it, I hope you guys enjoy the PTS, and hopefully, you know, tell people what some of the issues are out there. Not all these are finalized, by the way. They could change some of these. This is just the PTS, so some of these might get changed back to normal. Some of them might actually change even more. You're not 100% sure on how these PTS goes. Like for example, the whole I guess the Eagle Bear thing, which is right here, lowered Eagle Bear damage. That could change. It could go back to normal, or it might actually stay 15%. But I'm pretty sure all these will pretty much stay the same. At least I think they will. If they change something, then they'll probably release more patch notes. But if I remember correctly, this is like a part 1 and 2 PTS. So these are just the current patch notes at the moment for it. But if there's more patch notes, I will release another video later on. But thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Division 2 content. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.